Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Faith and I'm an online fashion reseller selling on Poshmark, eBay, and Mercari. Today I'm going to be sharing all my retail arbitrage tips with you to help you source retail arbitrage for your online business. So if you're new to reselling, you might be wondering, what is retail arbitrage? So retail arbitrage is essentially sourcing for inventory for your business for the purpose of reselling at a retail store like Nordstrom Rack, TJ MAXX, Ross, Marshalls, stores like that. In addition to retail arbitrage, there's also online arbitrage, which sometimes people refer to as RA or OA, which is essentially just buying items from these stores on their online websites or apps and having the inventory being delivered straight to your door. So as you're expanding and trying to scale your reselling business, this is something that you definitely want to learn how to do because it's going to save you time, and time is your most valuable resource. Okay, now let's get into the pros and cons of retail arbitrage as opposed to finding inventory in the more traditional ways like thrifting or from your own closet. The biggest pro in my opinion is that brand new items with the tag still attached are going to be able to yield you a higher profit because they are from trending brands, they are in style, and they are brand new with the tags attached. So they're going to have a higher resale value as opposed to items that you would find out thrifting or from your own closet. Another pro to retail arbitrage is that these retail stores often have great loyalty programs, so you have the opportunity to earn points, which can then equate to you turning them in order to purchase inventory that is essentially free to you. Another reason why I love retail arbitrage is that these retail stores offer great return policies, anywhere from 30 to 60-day return window. So if you bring an item home, you realize it's flawed, it's oversaturated, or it just bombs after listing, you can go ahead and return that item and either get your money back or you can exchange it for a new item that's going to perform better for you. Not all thrift stores offer this. For me personally, in my area, my thrift stores do not offer returns on clothing items. So there has been many times where I bring an item home and I realize that it is flawed and I can't do anything about it. I either have to sell it as flawed or just redonate the item. So for me, that is something very big to consider when choosing where I'm going to source for my inventory. So moving into the cons of retail arbitrage, I think the first one is probably the obvious one. It is a lot higher cost of good to be shopping retail arbitrage as opposed to thrifting, especially at the bins or from your own closet or from friends and family. This means that there is a higher barrier to entry, so not everyone can do it. With thrifting and reselling in general, really, practically anyone can open an account on Poshmark, eBay, Mercari, or wherever they wish to sell, and they can start reselling immediately. Everyone has clothes laying around that they can go ahead and sell, or they have friends and family that they can reach out to get free inventory. So the barrier to entry in reselling in general is extremely low, which is one of the reasons why I love it, because it is a great way for people to make a side income, have a side hustle, and just a great accessible way for people to make some extra money. Retail arbitrage does take a while to be able to build up in your business, to be able to do regularly, just because it does require a higher amount of capital because your cost per good is higher per item as opposed to when you go thrifting. Another con to retail arbitrage is oversaturation. As opposed to thrifting, when you are finding one-of-a-kind items, a lot of times vintage or rare items, or items that are no longer sold in stores, there is a lower likelihood of multiple of the same item being listed on reseller platforms, which means you have less competition for someone to buy your item that you're listing. As opposed to retail arbitrage, where a lot of these pieces are mass distributed across the country to hundreds of Nordstrom Racks or TJ Maxx's, so a lot of people can also pick up the same item as you and it can be flooded on the reseller market. So that's why checking comps with retail arbitrage is essential. You absolutely cannot shop retail arbitrage without checking comps. Okay, so that kind of laid the scene for what we're going to talk about today. Now I'm going to actually tell you how I go about shopping retail arbitrage. Specifically, I'm going to touch on how I source inventory at Nordstrom Rack and TJ Maxx, because that's where I predominantly source at. TJ Maxx and Marshalls are essentially the same, so you can take those tips and kind of apply them to each other. The basics of them are the same and you can really apply them to any retail store. Okay, so starting with Nordstrom Rack, which is my personal favorite, the first thing that I do when I walk into a Nordstrom Rack is I go straight to their racks. that have the clearance sign. Specifically, I like to start at the more high profitable categories like jeans and dresses, and then I kind of move my way into the coats and the shoes. As I'm sifting through the hangers on every piece of clothing, I look at every single piece. So I'm touching hundreds of items. The thing that's different about retail arbitrage as opposed to the thrift store is that every single piece is new with tags and is essentially brand new and was hand selected by the purchasers at Nordstrom Rack to be in the store. So you have to make sure that you are laser focused and you know what you're looking for and don't get kind of bogged down by the amount of inventory that you have to choose from. So what I do is as I'm sifting through the hangers, I'm looking at just the brand tag at the beginning. So I'm not really looking at anything else. I don't want to get distracted because with retail arbitrage, you can't really afford to pick something up just based off of style. It really does have to be a style and brand combination. And with retail arbitrage, in my personal opinion, brand kind of trumps style just because you are paying a higher cost of good. So I'm looking at the brand tags, and once I see a brand that pops out to me that I know in my head, I recognize from learning it from Instagram or YouTube or through my own personal research or experience, then I go down and I check the Nordstrom Rack tag to see how much it is priced at. So my personal rule of thumb is I don't pick up anything that is less than 80% off. I found that 80% is kind of the benchmark where it makes sense for me to pick it up. Obviously, this is a blanket statement. There are some pieces that you can get away with a little bit less, or some pieces need to be a lot more just based off of the brand and the style and, you know, all the things that you need to check for. If I find that the brand is great, the style is great, and it is priced well, then I go ahead and move forward with checking comps. So when I'm checking comps, I'm looking for how many of the same size, the same item obviously, in the same colorway are listed on the platform. So right away, if there are a lot of items of the exact same size and colorway, I just don't even move forward with checking comps. But if it looks like there isn't a lot of competition up there, then I move forward with seeing what the items are listed at, what kind of the price range that people are asking for, and then I move to the sold section to see how much they're actually selling for, how often they are selling for. So if there's a lot listed but none sold, I know that maybe it's not in demand at the moment, and just kind of saying if what the item is selling for is drastically different than what it's listed at, and kind of taking all those things into consideration. So if the item is priced low enough for me to at least double my money, obviously I want to more than double my money, but that's kind of like the bare minimum of what I'm trying to get, then I will go ahead and put it in my cart and pick it up. So I also have a little tip to share with you when sourcing at Nordstrom Rack. This tag, if you see this on any items, it means that it started out at Nordstrom, which is the high-end version of Nordstrom Rack. So an item starts at Nordstrom and then it's sent to Nordstrom Rack after being returned, exchanged, whatever reason. So if it has an item a tag that looks like this, that means that is potentially a higher retail item, a designer item, and items that aren't going to be as oversaturated on the reseller app just because it's less accessible to people, so it's going to be in higher demand. So if you see this tag, it's definitely something that you should take into consideration when looking up comps, and it might be something to pursue. Now, if you see this tag, that means that it was sent directly to Nordstrom Rack. So it didn't even hit Nordstrom, it was sent straight to the discount store. So this means that it could potentially be oversaturated. It's just a lower end brand and it could just not be the best pickup for you. But as always, check comps. You could be wrong. I've definitely picked up items with this tag and it was just a quick, easy flip. So just take that into consideration and maybe that will help you when you are sourcing items. I also mentioned that with retail arbitrage, you do have the option to return your items after a certain period if you decide that you no longer want them. So if you list an item and it is totally flopping and you feel like you regret it and it's a bad buy, you can go ahead and return it. I did do this at the beginning because it was easier for me to manage and I didn't have that much inventory that I had to keep track of, and also most of my inventory was at Nordstrom Rack, so it was kind of easy for me to gauge at what time I sourced the item based off of things we're selling, and I kind of was just able to mentally track it in my head. But as I started growing and I have more and more items, I found that it was just a little bit too much to track. So every once in a while, if I remember an item and I just totally have buyer's remorse, I do go ahead and return it. However, I'm not tracking it and using that option as often anymore, and a lot of that has to do with I'm growing as a reseller, so I have made smarter sourcing decisions and have less and less instances where I regret buying an item, but it definitely does happen, so I love having that option. And if you're just starting out, that is a great peace of mind. There's really no reason for you not to try it out, because if you decide that it's not working out or it hasn't sold within 45 days at Nordstrom Rack, then you can go ahead and return it. So really there's no way for you to lose money. All you're doing is investing the money, and if it doesn't work out, then you can return it and try again, and you will slowly build up that skill set and be able to do retail arbitrage more confidently. Okay, so now let's move on to sourcing at TJ Maxx. A lot of the same principles are the same as what I just shared with Nordstrom Rack. However, their pricing and their tagging system and how they organize the store is a little bit different. So I'll share some of my tips for how I approach sourcing at TJ Maxx, or even Marshalls. They're kind of the same. There are two sections that I hit at TJ Maxx. The first one being the clearance section, and I typically don't even pay attention to the tops. I just hit the sweaters, jeans, dresses, and shoes. And the most important thing to remember is on the tag, it gives you a compared at value, which when you read the tag, it makes it seem like that's what it retailed for, but that is definitely not the case. Almost all the tags are incorrect, and they retail for way more than what it says on the tag. So again, checking comps is critical. But I follow the same process where I sift through and I look at what brand it is, and then I look at the style, the quality, and then I move forward with checking comps. I have found that items at TJ Maxx are far more saturated than items at Nordstrom Rack, and it is less likely for you to find designer items. Now, there are certain stores that have runway sections which do have designer items where they sell those at those TJ Maxx locations, but not every location does. So it might be worth your time to just call ahead and see if they have a runway section and call around to different TJ Maxx's in your area, and then just hit the ones that do have that section, because those are going to be the best pieces of inventory that you're going to find at TJ Maxx. After I hit the clearance section, I definitely check out the front of the store at the contemporary brands. So a lot of times TJ Maxx doesn't price items as high as you might think. So a lot of the items that I actually sourced from TJ Maxx weren't even on sale or on clearance. They were just regular priced items that I knew the value of what they could go for, and I picked them up and they sold, and I had a great return on them. So you just have to make sure that when you're sourcing at TJ Maxx, you have that brand knowledge and you're kind of familiar. But for this reason, I find that sourcing at Nordstrom Rack is a little bit easier, just because you have that clear view on the tag of what it retails for and what % off it is. So that is one of the huge benefits of sourcing at Nordstrom Rack. The return period at TJ Maxx is 30 days, so it's 15 days less than Nordstrom Rack. However, at TJ Maxx, you are able to return an item after that 30-day window. You will just have to get store credit, and you don't have the option for getting your money back. But that's not, the worst thing. So if you accidentally miss the deadline, you really can just go in and exchange your inventory for something else that you feel will perform better. So again, that mitigates a ton of risk, and there's really no way that you can lose money when you are able to return an item, and even if you miss that mark, you're able to get store credit and purchase something else for your inventory. I think the biggest misconception about retail arbitrage is that you can't find items cheap enough to be able to flip for a decent amount of profit. That is certainly not the case. Now, where I live, my Goodwills are pretty pricey, and I can actually find items doing retail arbitrage that are cheaper than my Goodwill prices. So how could you not try it at least when you can find items that are the same price or cheaper, and they are on trend, new brands, and they're brand new with the tag still attached? Your profits are going to be so much higher, not to mention the fact that you have access to designer items that you can find at an insane price and are going to really make you way more profit than used items that are not on trend anymore. Now, that's not to say that you can't find amazing things at the thrift store. I just feel like my time is way better spent doing retail arbitrage based off of where I live, my circumstances, and the accessibility that I have. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you don't have any of these stores in your area, you can do online arbitrage. So the Nordstrom Rack website, or I use their app, you can go to the clearance section and then filter by best value, and it'll show you all the items that are the highest markdown all the way. If you were to take anything away from this video, it'd be to just start. You gotta try, you gotta start somewhere, and you'll figure it out along the way as you get more practice. And also to check comps. Checking comps is going to be your best friend, and you need to do it, and it's also going to make sure that you are making smart decisions, and it will reassure you that you are picking up the right items. Alright, those are all the tips that I have for you for sourcing retail arbitrage. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comment section. I would love to help you out. If you learned something in this video, please hit the thumbs up button and hit subscribe. It would really support my channel, and I love making this kind of content for you. I will see you guys next week with more reseller related content. Bye!